Truth be told, a lot of executives are looking at this as a way to trim headcount because, hey, we don't have to lay them off because we're going to make it so obnoxious for them to come into the office that they have no choice but to look for something else.
I feel like the underlying current for some, I'm not going to say all, for some is my way or the highway. I have this big empty office space that I'm paying for and it's not getting used. So you're all going to come here. We're going to do it together. So let's all be unhappy in the same space.
If you put yourself out there as an employer of people and you are cavalier about your employees, not only do I not want to work with you as a consultant or as a regular FTE, I'm tempted to actively work against you simply because you are not the kind of person that should have employees.
Welcome to Primal HR. Real people, real talk, real HR. The human side of work from the people who live it every day. Here are your hosts, longtime HR leader Terry Smith and People First strategist Leslie Lulham.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Primal HR. I'm Leslie Lulham, People Strategist, here with Terry Smith, HR Professional Extraordinaire. And today we are going to be tackling a very relevant and ongoing issue as it relates to quite a few companies, the return to office mandate. You'll hear Terry and I calling it RTO. So if you hear us talking in acronyms, that's what we're talking about. We're going to dig into why companies are pushing return to office, what's actually happening on the ground, human impact, some real stories, and let's get into it, Terry.
Okay, let's go. So why are companies pushing RTO? I think there's any of a number of reasons, some of which are really good and some of which I don't think much of at all. I think that there's an argument to be made that having people in the office in more of sort of a relaxed format and an ability to kind of interact together at the coffee bar or in the hallway or whatever can be very valuable. It can be very creative in its way. And so I definitely understand that. What I don't understand is when organizations say, well, we're not as productive if we don't have people in the office. And that's something I've heard a fair amount, as a productivity thing, right? And quite honestly, I don't buy it. And the trouble with it is that there's data that is on both sides of that argument, that some studies say, yeah, that's right. Some studies say, no, it's not. And we can't seem to get, and I would be interested to know who is financing those studies, because I'm sure that doesn't have anything to do with the results. But there's enough ambiguity there that it's a problem.
It is a problem. And I think, when we're looking at data, I love that you said who's publishing those studies, who's paying for it, because data can be interpreted any which way by whoever's reading it and what story they're trying to tell. So you could probably present similar data to both sides and they'd say, see, this proves our point. But I think the most common thing I'm seeing in my life and on LinkedIn, where we all know people love to go rant about HR, is people are saying it increases productivity, it increases collaboration, and sure, you know what? I'm going to give the collaboration one a +1. It's hard to build those types of relationships remotely. It is possible. A company has to put in place a robust culture for working remotely. Does it help with collaboration? I don't know. I think we have now people working across so many time zones effectively, remotely. We have people working down the street from each other remotely, effectively. It's all about coordinating core hours to me and making sure your meeting schedules are aligned. But I don't think we can say it's one size fits all. And I don't think companies should take that stance when they're developing an RTO policy. Further, they should think about if they need an RTO policy.
Yeah, and that's an important thing. Do they really need it? And what is the data? What are the metrics that support the concept that we need to have people back in the office? Show me what your data is actually telling you. And let's try not to interpret it too much. Let's just look at the data and say, okay, do we have concrete evidence that says we get more done and we're more creative and we're more collaborative when we're all in the office and when we're not? right? And I would be very interested to look at the studies around those sorts of things. I find a lot of times, particularly these studies that get quoted, at large, if you will, online, really are made up of incredibly small sample sets that I don't know how in the world you can draw a conclusion based on that size of a population for your study, and yet they get thrown around all the time, right? I mean, that happens. There's a ton of examples of remote workers, that have been with us for literally hundreds of years, right? I mean, everything from naval ships to, Avon sales reps to my grandfather sold Fuller brushes door to door. He was a remote employee, right? Fuller Brush Company was nowhere near where he lived. But they made it work, and there are methods that you can use to make that work. And so I think that the challenge that we've fallen into with this is that too many organizations have become reliant on having everybody under one roof, right? And that's just been the nature of how we've developed business, manufacturing, R&D over time. We've just done it under roofs. And so we're not familiar culturally, we're not familiar enough with how to operate that kind of business outside of the four walls.
Everyone likes to quote the data, which Terry has just established is very subjective. I would second that, by the way. I feel like we also see a lot of RTO mandates where, hot take, the executive team is saying it increases collaboration and productivity and all of these things, all the big buzzwords in the HR world. When you peel that onion back a layer, it's because I want it to be that way. It's when you look at the data, it's not really there. When you talk to the employees, they don't want to do it. And so I feel like the underlying current for some, I'm not going to say all, for some is my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. I have this big empty office space that I'm paying for and it's not getting used. So you're all going to come here and we're going to do it together. So let's all be unhappy in the same space.
Well, and then the double standard is that, okay, all of us, worker bees get to come in and spend 5 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever it is in the office. Where are the execs exactly?
I was just about to. Where are they?
Where are they?
Are they working from home?
Probably. Maybe.
Maybe they're on their private jet.
Oh, yeah.
Where they don't get internet.
Right. Yeah, because, that technology is not available.
Come on, we're all thinking it.
Well, and the reality is, you and I have both had the distinct pleasure of working in examples of organizations where that is absolutely the case. Where you can't find the CEO, you can't find the executive VPs because they're off doing whatever it is they do, and it may or may not be related to the actual work. Meanwhile, the whole plant is on full 8x5, right? And how do you square that? There are probably some VPs that we could invite in to talk about that. Whether they would show up or not, I don't know, but we could certainly invite them.
I got some ideas. But
no, I do.
What happens, right? Okay, it's mandated. Mm-hmm. You must come into the office every day, X days amount per week. Employees are very unhappy. People who live far away are now commuting hours plus. Hey, I had a long commute. This was long before hybrid work was a normal thing, but I did work in tech and I was afforded the ability to work from home as needed, which was great. It was usually reserved for sick days or something, my radiator broke and there's a technician in my house, whatever. I started at a company where my commute started at 45 minutes per direction to get there. This was in the Bay Area. Not super bad. I couldn't take BART. BART did not go that direction. I was already at the end of the line. And by the time, I think it was about 6 months in, my commute had increased to 2.5 hours per direction on some days. And I was literally in my car, and this is so sad. Oh my gosh. I was crying in my car after a long day of work. This was a company that the work environment was fine. My team was fine, great even. But I did run into some very passionate individuals in that office. One day I walked into a meeting and just got yelled at because I just happened to walk in the door and they needed someone to be mad at. And I did go cry in a bathroom after that because it caught me off guard. But you don't want to be crying in your car on the way to work. And I think a lot of employees now they're moving further away because there has been this flexibility, and now they have to make these insane commutes into the office when they have lives at home, they have kids, they have pets, they have health issues that they need to be able to take care of. Mm-hmm. And when you lay down a hammer of it is not flexible, you have a lot of unhappy employees who said, hey, maybe I actually work better remotely. And companies are like, nope, don't want to hear it. They put their fingers in their ear. So what are you seeing?
Well, I think one of the things that really is distressing about it is that there's more and more data and evidence coming out that, in fact, truth be told, a lot of executives are looking at this as a way to trim headcount.
I was just about to say that.
I mean,
you reminded me.
Because, hey, we don't have to lay them off because we're going to make it so obnoxious for them to come into the office that they have no choice but to look for something else. In this current labor market environment, I don't know how well that's playing or how much that's playing, but it's been said, and it's been said in print, online. At some point, you have to wonder, okay, talk to me about how that really works for your organization. I mean, to borrow a phrase from a movie, eventually I may get around to somebody you do care about, right? I mean, at some point, that key person is going to say, you know what, enough of this. I don't want to do this anymore. And now you're stuck with a key person that has left that you didn't want them to leave.
Right. Yeah, right? They're using these as, we'll call it a voluntary layoff. Yeah. I had a company years and years ago, they moved their office just from one end of the San Francisco Bay to the other. Uh-huh. It's commutable. Yeah. But I knew a number of people who were already there. I'm going to quit based on this. And they had to move physical office spaces. We weren't working remotely at that time. It's a little bit of a different flavor, but I have heard companies say we're doing return to office, and if people quit, oh well, because what happens, Terry, when you have an event like this, you don't have to pay separation or severance typically to a voluntary exit. It makes it so clean.
Well, and more than likely, you won't have to pay unemployment for it either.
Exactly.
So, you put a little pressure on, you make it uncomfortable enough that people are just going to say, okay, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm going to go find a job where I can, cut my commute by 2/3 or whatever, right? Whatever the particular impact would be, right? The story about the doors locking at 9 o'clock and not unlocking until 5 o'clock. I mean, that's a kind of dystopian, radical view of it, but that's kind of what we're hearing.
Right.
Right? Is that sense of, hey, we're kind of on lockdown on this. We either do it or Katie, bar the door, go find another job.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing that worries me about it, here's the thing that in its current context, what really worries me is that this is also a lot of this is being blamed on AI. We're doing, there are companies that literally have said, we're cutting out these many employees because we've achieved these efficiencies with AI. Number one, I don't believe it. Number two, that's a pretty crappy way to do things.
They're firing these employees before they prove the AI works.
Exactly.
It's happening, and I am very interested to see. Terry, do you remember the job market in 2023 when it was a candidates market?
Oh, my God, yes.
Companies were all vying over the same people, and the benefits were through the roof. Inbound employees could demand whatever they wanted. That got really quickly flipped on its head, and now the job market is very terrible. So these companies that are doing these RTOs that are making employees unhappy, no one's quitting their jobs right now unless they can, because the job market is brutal.
Oh, yeah.
The second the job market picks up, these companies are going to be left holding an empty bag, and all of these employees are going to leave, and they're going to probably be wondering, what happened?
Yeah.
Or they want it to happen.
Maybe. Who knows? We're speaking in very grand generalities, obviously, but, these are the things that we're seeing boots on the ground in HR today, right? And I'm sad to say that, yes, we're speaking in generalities, but we're probably touching more nerves than we think we are, even,
I'm intending to poke every single one of those nerves.
And rightly so, because, look, I could get way off into an esoteric conversation about the social contract, but let's just put it this way. If you put yourself out there as an employer of people for a product or service that you've created, developed, achieved, whatever, and you are cavalier about your employees, not only do I not want to work with you as a consultant or as a regular FTE, I'm tempted to actively work against you simply because you are not the kind of person that should have employees. You're the kind of person that should really just do things on your own, and good luck with you.
And Godspeed.
Our next episode, we've spent a lot of time really kind of downplaying some of this and being a little bit gloomy. Next episode, we're going to talk about ways that we can do things better. Stay tuned. Join us.
You've been listening to Primal HR. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Join the conversation on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Primal HR Podcast. Show notes and more at primalhrpodcast.com. Got a topic idea or want to join us on the show? Reach out at primalhrpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.